What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today I wanted to talk about what I consider to be one of the most underrated guns in Warzone currently, and this is the AK74u. Now that's probably already raising a few eyebrows out there because if you look at just the base stats in a vacuum without considering other variables, the AK74u simply doesn't stand out. It doesn't really appear to be a great gun in Warzone. However, when you start to consider other variables and real-world situations, I truly feel the AK74u is so much better than a lot of people think it is. And to be very clear up front, I'm not necessarily saying that the AK74u is the best SMG or it's going to be a meta gun or anything. I just feel like it is extremely underrated and it's worth giving a shot because I think a lot of people are actually going to enjoy it after seeing today's video. So let's start going through the stats and explaining exactly why I feel this is so underrated, and I am going to be making a lot of comparisons to the bullfrog today, and the primary reason for that is it seems like the bullfrog is still the top choice for a mid-range SMG, and the AK74u is also a mid-range Cold War SMG. So let's just start hopping into it and going through the basic stats of the 74u. When it comes to our maximum damage to the body, this is 35, and the interesting thing about this is it applies to the entire body, whereas with almost every other SMG in Warzone, you only deal your maximum damage to the torso, and then you deal less damage to the limbs. So already, the AK74u has a nice upside compared to all the other SMGs, and that is, you don't have to worry about the fact that if you land a few shots to the shoulder or the arm or something, it's not going to be hurting your time to kill at all, whereas with a lot of the other SMGs, it will hurt your time to kill if you are landing those arm shots mixed in. And I am going to come back to this in a little bit once we get to time to kill and compare this with the bullfrog and just show you guys how much more forgiving this is. But the next thing to look at is our rate of fire, which is 697 rounds per minute, which is a pretty decent rate of fire. It's not super fast, not super slow. Then our time to kill with no armor plates is 172 milliseconds, which is extremely fast, but that's expected with no armor plates. And then with 3 armor plates equipped, our time to kill potential is 603 milliseconds. And this really isn't a standout time to kill by any means. This is a little bit slower than average for SMGs within their maximum damage range. And this is one of the reasons that this gun is often overlooked, is that's one of the primary stats people will look at is the 3-plate time to kill. And while a 603 millisecond time to kill isn't bad by any means, it's also not good. It's not great, at least for an SMG. But this is where I want to circle back and start comparing this to the bullfrog. With the bullfrog, our 3-plate time to kill is quite good for an SMG at 555 milliseconds. However, in order to get that time to kill, 6 out of your 8 shots have to be hitting the torso. If you hit any more than 2 shots to the shoulder or the arm or the leg or anything like that, your time to kill potential now drops to 634 milliseconds, which is now slower than the AK74u. And like I said earlier, that's not something you ever have to worry about with the AK74u since you deal the same damage to the entire body. Now for players that are quite confident with their aim, most of their shots will be hitting the torso anyway, but there will always be those situations where somebody's moving quickly, maybe they're jump shotting or something, and you happen to land more than a couple shots to the leg or the arm. With the bullfrog, this can definitely make the difference between winning and losing a gunfight, whereas with the AK74u, you're getting that same consistent time to kill to the body, no matter where in the body you're shooting them. So that's the first thing that's often overlooked when we're taking a look at the AK74u, but that's not the big thing. Now let's move on to our headshot damage, and with the 74u, our headshot damage is 56, which is quite high for an SMG. And the great thing about this is all you need is 1 headshot mixed in with shots from anywhere else in the body, and that will reduce the number of shots to kill by 1, which means our new time to kill potential is 516 milliseconds, which is now a very competitive time to kill for SMGs. It's still not the fastest in the game or anything, but it is a very competitive time to kill. And when we get back to our comparison with the bullfrog here, in Season 3, now that the bullfrog got a damage nerf, mixing 1 single headshot in with torso shots isn't enough to improve our time to kill anymore, so the AK74u beats it out in this case. And when we consider 2 headshots mixed in with body shots, with the AK74u, this once again drops the number of shots it takes to kill, and our new time to kill potential is now 430 milliseconds, which is going to kill faster than almost every single full auto gun in the entire game. You are going to be absolutely melting people if you can get those 2 headshots mixed in. Whereas with the bullfrog, if you get 2 headshots mixed in with torso shots, your time to kill potential is 476 milliseconds, which is still an incredible time to kill, but it's not as fast as the AK74u. So the moment we start factoring headshots into the equation, whether it's 1 headshot mixed in or 2, the AK74u has more killing potential than the bullfrog. And this right here is one of the primary reasons that I feel the 74U is so underrated. Many people haven't really considered headshots and just how many headshots you need with other guns compared to the AK74U to improve your time to kill. And it really doesn't take much with this gun. And then also, let's have a look at the recoil, because this goes hand in hand with the headshot damage. This thing kicks pretty much straight upward and then a little bit to the right, but in a nice, consistent, straight line. What this means is this gun naturally likes walking up toward the head as long as you're compensating for that horizontal drift. And therefore, oftentimes, even if you aren't trying for headshots, you're going to end up getting headshots with the 74U. But finally, for base stats, we have range and our bullet velocity, and our range value is great for an SMG at 18 meters. This is 3 meters better than the bullfrog. And our bullet velocity is the best in the SMG category for all of Warzone. There's no other SMG in the game that beats this when it comes to bullet velocity. And honestly, this base bullet velocity is more than enough for this gun for the ranges that you would typically want to be challenging people. At 615 meters per second, this gun is basically going to feel like a hit scan weapon out to about 40 meters. And therefore, you really don't need to waste an attachment slot on a barrel just to boost your bullet velocity. That sort of opens up your choices a bit when creating your class setups. And this is really good news, especially because most of the barrels on the AK74U are completely bugged out at the moment, where it won't give you iron sights at all. Like, these sights themselves will be completely removed from the gun and you're just kind of guessing where the bullet goes. Or in the case of the rifle barrel, it just completely misaligns and the bullet actually shoots significantly lower than the front post of your sight where it should be hitting. And that looks like it's just a rigging issue at the moment. I hope this is something they can get sorted out in the future. But like I said, this isn't that big of a deal because you don't need to rely on barrels with this gun. But I should mention, if you insist on using a barrel with the AK74U, you can use any one of the optic attachments, and then your gun will be firing properly on your point of aim. So yeah, there you have it. Hopefully this was a good explanation as to why I feel the AK74U is so underrated. Again, just want to clarify, I'm not necessarily saying this is the best in the game or anything, but I think it should be way higher up on people's lists than it currently is, because as of right now, I don't see anybody talking about it, I don't see anybody using it, and I think it's a gun that is worth using. Now, if you do want to check it out, I've got a couple class examples that I wanted to share for you guys that I feel work quite well with the AK74U. The first one is the more consistent all-around setup that I'd recommend using, and with this, we got the GRU suppressor. We've got no barrel on this because, like I said, not necessary. And therefore that means we don't need an optic because our iron sights will be working properly with no barrel equipped. Then we're using the KGB skeletal stock to help us with our sprint out time as well as our aim walking movement speed, even though this doesn't have great aim walking movement speed to begin with. Then for our rear grip, we've got the serpent wrap, which allows us to snap to target just a little bit faster. So I like having my SMGs super snappy. After that, we got the Spetsnaz 50-round drum mag. This one is the best magazine attachment to be using for the 74U. And then finally, for our underbarrel grip, we're using the Spetsnaz grip to be helping with our recoil a bit, so we can land those headshots a little bit easier. And yeah, like I said, that's a good, consistent, all-around sort of AK74U setup. However, I wanted to share an alternative, and this one's a bit interesting, but bear with me as I go through it here. With this one, we're not using a suppressor, and I know that sounds crazy, but we're using the KGB Eliminator, which means the dot that appears on the enemy's minimap, it will disappear within 500 milliseconds of a shot being fired, so it's not like you're going full-on loud like as if you had no suppressor at all. You do get some protection from there, but the main reason I'm using this helps a lot more with vertical recoil compared to the GRU suppressor, and this is designed to be a laser beam sort of build, and it is super accurate. But with this, we got the Liberator barrel, which helps with our bullet velocity even more. That way, it's really going to feel like hit scan out to an even longer distance. We've got the Microflex LED, since our sights are going to be completely screwed up by using that barrel attachment. And this one is designed for precision, so you can really pick those headshots off. And then we once again have that 50-round drum mag and the Spetsnaz grip to make this as accurate as possible. And when we look at the recoil here, you can tell it is noticeably reduced. And I also noticed that it's just super easy to control this recoil as well. This is a super accurate setup. Just aim for the head with this and you'll be putting people down very quickly out to a pretty decent range for an SMG at least. Of course, the big thing to keep in mind here is you will be showing up on the enemy's minimap, and you always have to be considering that when pulling the trigger with this setup, which is why it is a little bit more of a novelty setup and not the consistent all-arounder like the previous one. But with that, that's going to wrap it up for today's video. I'd like to know in the comment section below, now that you've sat through and watched this entire video, have I convinced you? Do you think the AK74U is an underrated SMG, and do you see yourself giving it a shot anytime in the near future? If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.